Hey everyone, me Kevin here. In this video, we're going to talk about 7+ steps to build wealth and get rich in 2023 and beyond. It's really a simplified path for becoming a millionaire, and I want to share that here. We're going to do it live. Even if you're watching this on recording, I'm going to be able to see comments and add where people have questions. So let's give it a shot. Step number one. Assume you have a zero net worth, which that might be easy because you could be at a zero net worth. But no matter what your net worth is, I think it's really important to assume you have no money. And if you have money, you should get it out of your visibility on a daily basis. There's nothing more demotivating than feeling like you've got enough money in the bank account to pay the bills and you don't really have to work overtime today. You don't really have to go make that extra video as a YouTube creator or hold that open house as a real estate agent. I like to keep my bank accounts to where I'm on the edge of overdrafting them. And even if they overdraft, which sometimes they do, I go in there, I'm like, okay, I can always transfer money over from another account, but I do that for a psychological purpose. And that's to feel like I need to keep working. Even if you just want your money in cash and you send it to a brokerage account, getting money out of your face is a really good tool for making sure you're motivated to work. Now, the same actually works with a stock portfolio. A lot of people wake up in the morning and one of the first things they do is they wake up and the market's already open. They're like, oh, how's my stock portfolio today? Oh, man, it's red. And the first thing they do is allow negativity or the market to lead them to feel negative, right? You allow this to sort of define your day. And what happens sometimes on bad market days is people will just roll back over. I'm just going to go back to sleep and try to sleep the pain away because they've almost associated their identity with smaller scale starting accounts, investments they're making. And if things aren't going perfect, it's easier to just check out. This is actually a really bad way to start your day and set yourself up for what should be productivity. Now, schedules help with this, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but I'm a big fan of getting away from negative influences. Now, negative influences don't just have to be things that you do yourself to make yourself feel bad. Some of the most common things are looking at your portfolio, feeling guilty about a mistake you made. Every single human being goes through life and gets scars. Everyone messes up and screws up. And some of the richest people in the world screw up the most. But they just have more successes than they have losses. And I'll tell you, I'd rather have 100 successes and 50 scars than have no scars and no successes. So keep putting one foot in front of the other. Another thing that's important here is not surrounding yourself with negativity. It's so easy to get caught up in conspiracies and tinfoil hat criticisms of other people and really that relativity. And it just holds you back because the more cynical you are, the less optimistic you are, and the less likely you are to actually build wealth because you're too busy hating on other people. And that's a problem, right? Envy, Warren Buffett says, and Charlie Munger echoes this, envy drives the world because people, they want a bigger jet, they want the bigger car, they want the bigger house than the next guy. And that's fine when it's a motivational tool, but it rarely is. Most of the time, people start winning when they actually start trying, but then they feel depressive because they're comparing their successes to somebody else. Look, I learned this early on playing video games. There's always going to be someone better than you. That's just the way it is. Because when I played RuneScape, there was always someone better than me. When I played World of Warcraft, there was always something better than me. Halo, same thing. Real estate agent, YouTube, doesn't matter. There's always someone better than you. Financial advisor, ETF manager, doesn't matter. Always someone better. It even got so extreme that you had people like Julius Caesar was like, Alexander the Great is better or whatever, right? And they're looking up and then Alexander the Great is, God is better than me, right? It's like that relativity is such a great way to always feel toxic. It's bad. Never going to win that game. So one of the first videos that I actually made as a YouTube creator where I'm like, I want to make YouTube videos for the purposes of helping educate people was in 2017. And I talked about the toxicity of relativity and how bad it is because you can never celebrate your wins. You're never satisfied. And when you're never satisfied with even the small wins that you have when you start out, when you're never satisfied, what it actually does is it demotivates you. It doesn't motivate you. It's a terrible thing. So really big, important part of getting started is get away from that negativity. I also found that when I was a starting out real estate agent, I would have people in 2010 tell me, oh, why would you get into real estate? The market's terrible, or the real estate market sucks, or why don't you get a real job? That kind of negativity, you want to get out of your life or turn that energy around into inspiration. That helped me a lot. I would hear people say that, and I told myself, you know what? That negativity is exactly why there's less competition for me to kill it as a real estate agent. Let everybody else be negative is what I always told myself. And it's really important. And I don't want to come across as suggesting, oh, it's just mindset and then you're going to get rich. It's not. I'll show you in this video an easy way to do it. A lot of you can already guess what that is. But it also helps. So that's sort of step one, right? Assume your net worth is zero. Don't look at your portfolio. Focus on positivity. You can rather than you can't, right? It's America. And even if you're in a different part of the world, like, you can do it. The next step, and this is really the first real step, is I'm a big fan of schedules. One of the things I talk about in Elite Hustlers University, which is a course I have on building extra sources of income and increasing your income as an employee or not. One of the things I talk about is how important it is to really know yourself. And like, I know I do really well with filmed content in the morning. The afternoons I start dragging out, and hey, you know what? I'm filming this in the afternoon, but guess what? I decided, hey, I'm gonna film it live, because there's nothing more energizing to me than seeing your comments pop up while I'm filming, saying things like, I don't know why y'all talking about long peepees in the chat, but that is a way I'm tricking myself to be able to work more. So knowing yourself in terms of when you're most efficient is important. Some people are most efficient when they work alone and quiet between 9 p.m. and 1 a.m. Some people are much better when they wake up at 4 and they have that quiet time in the morning, right? But then sticking to that routine is so important. So your body gets used to that clock and you actually care about your health. One of the easy hacks that I think most people neglect, I would say probably 90% of people neglect, is just buy more pre-cut fruit. Now that pisses some people off because they're like, Kevin, pre-cut fruit is expensive. Well, fine. Like, if you really need to, then just have a cutting ceremony once a week, where you cut fruit and you have it all prepared and ready to go. Or just buy pre-cut fruit if you can, and get that energy and those vitamins to really help you. And I'm a big fan of naturally sourced vitamins, not supplements. I'm not the biggest fan of that, but this is not a video about nutrition and health. It's just a part of it. So figure out your routine, figure out your health. Now, the next step, number 2. So we did step 0, which was start at 0. How convenient. Number 1, your routine and understanding yourself. Number 2, what's real. Oh, with number 1, I do also want to mention, one of the things to know here is a lot of people realize this. They realize if they go out drinking too much at night, they figure out what their limit is, and then they realize when it affects them the next morning. So some people, that limit is 1 drink and they feel groggy the next morning. Don't drink when you're going to have to work the next morning. Some other people can drink 4 drinks and they're not groggy. But then if they go to 5 or 6, they're groggy next, right? So figure that part of your balance out to where you're not inhibiting yourself the next morning. Quite important. So step number 2, I believe, is focusing on higher income. And this is really important. I saw a Reddit thread of somebody who felt so defeated. They're 27 years old. They didn't graduate high school, felt like they couldn't get a job other than miscellaneous part-time gigs. And then they felt lost. And so my immediate thought was, well, look at your life and ask yourself, what's stopping you from getting the job that you want? Any job you want, you could Google what the requirements are for it. You want to be a pilot? Google how to be a pilot. You want to work for Deloitte? How to get an internship at Ernst & Young. They're hiring like crazy. Or Deloitte. You want to work for Tesla? Google the requirements. A lot of them don't even have college requirements anymore. Figure out what those requirements are, write them down, and then compare to yourself and say, wait, what do I need to do to get there? Oh, I didn't graduate high school? Get a GED. And make that your goal, your mission. See, a lot of us get burned out by the idea of like, oh, I've got a 40-hour-a-week job that I hate. When the reality is, I think most people who are starting to build their wealth should be thinking about working 60 hours a week. You work your 40-hour-a-week job, then you work 20 hours in a side hustle, which gives you some sweet tax benefits we'll talk about in a moment. And then you spend the rest of the time with friends and family. You got to work hard, play hard. But so important to think about actually getting an income coming in something that actually has upward mobility. I think one of the worst positions you can be in is in a position where you don't have upward mobility. So you might be the best forklift driver, the best Uber driver in the world, but your upward mobility is limited. In the future, you'll be replaced by a robot, and it's not going to help you on a resume. It would be better to make less money at something that you could work yourself up in, like an internship. So sometimes what that actually means is rather than living in a low cost of living area, it means moving to a high cost or higher cost of living area. An example I always like to give is, hey, who's going to make more money? The electrician in the middle of nowhere of Ohio? It's not a diss to Ohio. I like Ohio. I've been to Chillicothe, Ohio, and that's where I came up with the idea. I'm like, well, geez, electricians over here getting paid, $15 per outlet they change out. Electricians in San Francisco are getting paid $80 an hour per outlet they're replacing, because the competition is like there are many more people demanding outlets to be replaced in San Francisco than in parts of Ohio where people are just going to do it themselves. You're competing against the owner themselves. So sometimes going to those higher cost of living areas are actually going to give you a nice little boost to getting your income going. So I'm a really big fan of that. I'm also a big fan of having a job. A lot of people on social media like to diss on the idea of having a job, but jobs are a wonderful way for you to have paid time off, benefits, upward mobility, and job placement experience where you're actually building a resume and you're building experience. You're learning from somebody who's created a company before you that you can actually learn from. And your job becomes not showing up for work and plugging in the hours. It's you're there early, you stay late, you're the hardest working person there. Because when you become valuable, and that's a big key, is when you provide value and you become irreplaceable, you get promoted, you make more money. The bigger problems you can solve, the more money you can make. I think generally we get stressed about the idea of problems, when really one of the big shifts of mindset when it comes to income and potential is you look at a problem and you say, well, that's why you get paid what you get paid. The bigger problems you can solve, the more money you make. It's that simple. The harder you work, the luckier you get, right? So you get that hate and envy out of your life in step 0. You focus on your ability to actually have energy throughout the day in step 2, or in step 1, which might, health, vitamins, fruits, exercise. Then focus on getting your income up. What are the requirements? The beautiful thing is you can do anything, especially here if you're in America. There's no job you can't do. And you can Google the requirements for them. You want to be a registered nurse and work your way up to anesthesiologist nurse, for example, over a few years. Boy, you could go from making no money or $20,000 a year to making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Contracting, real estate agents, lenders, CPAs, you name it. These are all things you can look up. You want to get an internship at the Air Force and the finance department, you could do that. And that now gives you something on your resume where people look and go, wow, work for the Air Force. That's a great item on your resume. Wow, you did finance for them. Great. That's awesome. That makes it so much easier to go into a consulting job in the future. Always thinking about that upward mobility. Really, really important. Somebody asked me this morning, for example, hey, should I go move from working at, one space company to working for the city? And my thought was, no. You should be thinking about going from one private space company, not to a city where it's actually potentially going to hurt your resume. In my opinion, I'm thinking, how can you get from the city to a private space company to like the best space company, whether that's SpaceX or whatever it may be, right? You want to think about upward mobility. You don't want to move up. That's the goal. And see, I think one thing that overwhelms a lot of us on sort of the path to building wealth is we're trying to think about, okay, how can we plan everything out? And that's not a reality. You can't plan out absolutely everything. You just have to be able to be fluid, to change your mind and go into the best direction at any potential time, as long as you're moving up. What's next? What can I do next to get to the next level? So important. You grind and you're always working hard. It works out. And see, step 3, in my opinion, is whether you're self-employed or not, I think everybody should have a side hustle. We talk about this a lot in that Elite Hustlers course, which I've got a bunch of programs on building your wealth link down below. You get a spoiler here. But everybody should have a side hustle, because that means if, let's say, you're an employee, you can't write off your cell phone if you're paying for it yourself. You can't, if you're paying for your own health insurance, you can't write that off. But if you have a side hustle, that's not a hobby. It's something that actually has the potential of making money. Confirm obviously everything in this video with the CPA. I'm not an accountant. And while I am a financial advisor, this video is not personal financial advice for you because I don't know your situation. You want to make sure that, hey, when you need things, you could potentially write them off as a necessary and ordinary cost of you operating your side hustle. So having a side hustle, maybe it's a Matterport 3D scanning business, for example. Well, you need a laptop, you need an iPad, you need a phone. These are things you might want to buy personally for personal use on the side anyway. But if your primary purpose is for business and there's a necessary and ordinary purpose for that, you might be able to write things off or parts of things off that otherwise you would get no write-offs on. And now you're able to be tax efficient while making more money and growing your experiences and working with people. See, business is not about making money. Business is about solving problems and helping people. And as soon as you realize that if you want to make more money, you have to help more people, well, then you start making more money. Like once you realize that what you get paid is a factor of how much value you put out, that and the problems that you solve, boom, there you go. Now, that's when you really start unlocking your income potential. But some things do have a ceiling. And that's why, for example, if you're driving Uber, that's ceiling limited. You're limited by how much you can drive. And you could be the best Uber driver in the world, but you're limited to how much actually you can get paid. You're limited by your time. So you really want to be thinking about moving up, moving up, moving up. Very awesome. So next, think about setting yourself up to buy real estate. Now, this is really important. So when it comes to end of the year tax strategies, usually if you can depreciate things rather than writing off things in full, certain things you can take accelerated depreciation on. But if you're writing off things in full rather than depreciating, you're going to hurt yourself for qualifying. It's sort of the double-edged sword of having a side hustle. You want to try to have as much income as possible and as little debt as possible, so that way you can buy real estate. I strongly believe this, that anyone who has a net worth under $1 million should focus first on owning real estate. That's it. And your goal is you want to save up as much money as you can for a down payment. You buy a home, talk to real estate agents, talk to lenders, buy a home where you live. You know where not to do a Craigslist transaction at 7 p.m. Don't buy there. You know the good areas. Try to get in a good area, something small. The smaller, the better. The best area, the smallest potential thing you can buy there. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, 3 bedroom, 1 bath, whatever. Start small. Don't go dream home. Buy something that you can improve. Ideally, it's simple things, cosmetics. The more dated it is, usually the better. You want to do simple things. You don't want to be working on foundations, roofs, plumbing systems, electrical systems. You want to look at a place and go, all I have to do is do some paint, carpet, spruce up the cabinets, and I can build equity in this home. You go into, let's just say like my first home, a $300,000 home or a $400,000 home, whatever it is. You put 3.5% down on a $300,000 home, you're looking at around $10,000 plus closing costs. You're in for 20 grand. Then start learning how to fix things up yourself a little bit. Build that equity over the next year or two. And the cool thing about that is rather than being worried about mortgage insurance, which everybody's like, oh, try to put 20% down. Stupidest thing in the world. It'll delay you from buying real estate. People don't get to 20% down really easily. Why? Because when they see the money in their bank account, they start working less hard and they start spending more money, right? This is why one of the first things I said is stop looking at your profiles and your accounts and your portfolios and stuff. Focus on making as much money as possible. Get into owning real estate. Owning real estate that ideally is a wedge deal where you're buying a home for $300,000 in a $400,000 neighborhood that needs maybe $20,000, $30,000 of work. Now, all of a sudden, you're getting $3 back for every dollar you're putting into it. And it makes it easier to get rid of mortgage insurance in the future because you're building sweat equity. That's awesome. Got plenty of videos on the channel about exactly that. In fact, you could just type into YouTube, Meet Kevin, biggest loan myths, biggest lies about real estate, how to build wealth with real estate, your first rental property for real estate. You can see these videos on YouTube. Of course, a lot of them have a ton of information in them, but obviously as well, I also sell education. I sell really in-depth lecture courses for building your wealth as a real estate agent, going 0 to millionaire as a real estate investor, owning your first home and then getting into your first rentals, do-it-yourself property management and rental renovations, elite hustlers for starting your side hustle or increasing your income at the job where you are. And you can use the coupon code in the description link down below. There's one expiring tonight. That's called PP. And you can click the link down below and should update if there's a future coupon code if you're watching this in the future. So the big goal of reducing your debt and maximizing your income is obviously buying real estate, because you don't just want to buy one home. The easiest way to become a millionaire is you buy your first home and you bank hack. You put 3 to 5% down, you buy your first home, you live there for a year or two, then you rent it out. Now you got homeowner financing rates, and your next home, you buy with 3 to 5% down again. Ideally, you buy properties where when you buy them, you're getting a good deal to where if you needed to rent the property out, you could rent the property out and cash flow. That's ideal, but it's not possible in every area. But that's actually okay, because if you're putting 3 or 5% down, you're probably not going to cash flow. And a lot of people think, oh, well, I guess I can't do real estate. Wrong answer, because think about it this way. Let's even say worst case scenario. You looked and you're like, all my payments for this house, maintenance, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, management, everything, all my expenses on this house are going to be $2,500 a month. And you look at it and you say, well, I can only rent it out for $200 a month. You look at that and you're like, dang, that's a $500 a month loss. Well, some people look at that and say, I'm just not going to buy real estate then. When the reality is, because you put less money down, you should be asking yourself, am I willing to invest an additional $6,000 per year into real estate? In most cases, the answer should be absolutely yes. The reason you really want to focus on building wealth with real estate is because of the leveraged effect of real estate, the compounded effect of real estate. The beauty here is if you put 3% down on a $300,000 house, you're into the deal for, with closing costs, say $20,000. Now, if the property value was bought as a wedge and you have a $100,000 upside in it, well, you've already 5x'd your money in equity. You went from $20,000 of net worth to $100,000. But let's say you paid market value for the home, and now the home went up 10% in value. Well, you just increased your equity $30,000 on 20 that you put into it. It's a phenomenal way to build wealth. And the worst thing that you could do is look at lifetime interest paid, because it totally forgets that when you have a 30-year mortgage, the interest you're paying every year in the future is actually worth less and less and less. So many people get dissuaded by, oh, but over the lifetime, I'm going to pay so much in interest. And they forget all of the opportunities that are afforded to homeowners, not only tax benefits of rental property especially, but also the leverage benefits, the safer leveraging benefits of real estate that actually let you build your net worth and potentially pay no taxes in the future. You heard that right. There's a potential you could pay 0 taxes on real estate gains ever. It's a combination of the 1031 exchange and stepped up tax basis. Details we won't go through in this video, but there are phenomenal ways to never pay taxes in real estate. So real estate, if your net worth is under $1 million, and for some reason you're not thinking about becoming a homeowner, I personally think you're doing it wrong. But again, I'm not your personal financial advisor, so who knows? But then again, I will tell you, even though I'm a financial advisor, I found, and this isn't to bag on other people, it's not that at all, it's just my perspective. I found that many financial advisors aren't a big fan of people getting into real estate. And that's because sometimes there's actually an incentive to suggest, no, just invest in our stock products or our mutual fund products. And I personally think that's a missed opportunity. And that might be because financial advisors often are driven by some form of a commission. And if somebody goes and buys a house, that's money that they're not putting in with that financial advisory firm. And sometimes I think there's a negative bias there. But then again, look, any industry professional you're going to talk to is going to have bias. You go talk to a realtor that you find, obviously they're going to be biased for you to buy a home. But start small. I'm a big fan of bank hacking. You start with a 1-bedroom, 1-bath if you can, or a 2-in-1. And then you have a reason to go to a bigger home as your family and your needs grow. If you start with a 5-bedroom, 3-bath home, how are you going to tell the bank, oh, I'm moving into a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, I'm downsizing? Dude, you're 25, you're not downsizing. They won't believe you, and then you won't get the loans anymore. That's the beautiful thing, is if you're moving into a home every few years, you don't even have to do it that often. I mean, look around. How many people do you know that own more than 5 properties? And now ask yourself, if you're 25, do you think you could buy 1 property every 5 years for the next 25 years? You'd have 5 properties by the time you're 50. You'd almost have the first one completely paid off, not even making any extra principal payments because you're on a 30-year mortgage. It's phenomenal. So real estate, real estate, real estate, real estate. If you are ignoring getting educated in real estate, I highly, highly encourage you to do everything you can to get educated in real estate. You don't have to buy my 0 to Millionaire real estate investing course. Start with Google, start with YouTube, whatever you want. Some people are like, oh, I could just Google it. Do it. Start with that. And then if you want a structured path and you want all of the insights that I have, having started as a real estate investor, having launched a real estate startup, having been a real estate broker, having been a lender, having been a contractor, having done all of that, well, then that's an opportunity for you. So only after you own real estate, and in my opinion, after your net worth really grows above and beyond the starting processes of stocks, is really when I think it's time to prioritize the stock market. So let me clarify that. I do think it makes sense for people to start with a Roth. This is a tax savings account where it's a retirement account, essentially, where when you put money and you contribute to a Roth, what happens is you put in after-tax money and you can grow that money tax-free. The cool thing that's a hack about a Roth is you could actually take that money out of your Roth if it's for the purpose of buying a home. You could look up the limits for that and the rules around that online, but principal that you put into a Roth, you can take out. Fact check everything with a CPA, but principal you put into a Roth, you could take out, especially if you want to go buy a house, but for any reason really with a Roth. There's some ways you could do that with a 401k as well. I'm a big fan of taking advantage of any kind of matches your employer gives you. But really, the priority when you're starting your net worth building shouldn't be stocks. Sure, do that in your retirement accounts, max those out, but then focus on real estate. After you focused on real estate, I think one of the best long-term investments that you can make is into various different ETFs. You can pick index-wide ETFs, which have very low fees, or if there's a certain theme that you're a big fan of, whatever that theme may be, you can pick actively managed ETFs, which have a slightly higher fee, but the benefit of those is an active manager can trade stocks for other stocks within a portfolio, rebalancing a portfolio and not passing on capital gains to you because you're just holding the ticker, which is the basket that encompasses the portfolio. So that way, if one stock runs really hot, an active manager can sell some of that hot stock, buy some of the other stocks that haven't moved up as much yet, and not pass along potentially a capital gain to you as the investor. If you manage a portfolio yourself and you're in that situation where one of your stocks ran, you're going to look and go, dang, I don't want to sell because I don't want to pay the taxes. But that's really bad for a diversification point of view and could really hurt you in the future if that stock goes through a bear market cycle or a recession, as many people have learned in 2022. So an actively managed ETF could be a really good opportunity, especially if there's something thematic that you're a big fan of, whether that's an energy play or it's an innovation play, it's a pricing power play, whatever it is. So that's a great way to invest, in my opinion. Again, not personalized financial advice for you. Talk to your own advisors for your own personalized advice. And really then, in my opinion, the last step is expanding all of the previous ones. It's expanding the businesses that are making the most money for you, putting more money and more investment and more time into those businesses while you're in the growing phase. It's expanding your real estate portfolio on a personal level, taking advantage of the fact that you can get up to 20 Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, 30-year fixed rate loans in America. This is absolutely amazing. And taking advantage of the fact that if you're invested in ETFs, you could potentially never pay taxes on your stocks. Just like when you exchange real estate, you're letting other people exchange stocks for you. That's a phenomenal opportunity. Or you're trading within, make your trading account your Roth if you really want to trade, or do that within your retirement accounts, right? So expanding is such a critical part. I'm such a big fan of expanding. And this is actually where I think one of the biggest pitfalls that people run into is passive income. Passive income is such a lie when you're trying to build your net worth. When you're trying to build your net worth, you should be running away from passive income. Passive income means more passive taxes. You want passive wealth. You want your assets to passively becoming worth more. Real estate tends to become worth more over time. Your real estate debt becomes worth less over time as your tenants are paying it off. automatic way to build wealth, real estate. Usually an automatic way to build long-term wealth, if you have a long-term focus, is you're sitting in ETFs that are rebalancing for you, so you're not paying taxes. And you're staying away from dividend stocks, which are really a horrible thing to invest in when you're trying to build your wealth. Because usually what people do is then they're like, oh, I got all this passive income. I guess, champagne on me tonight because I got passive income. Well, now you're paying taxes and you're burning your passive income. That's dumb. Now, some people are like, oh, well, we'll just reinvest your dividends. Why would you do that? You should invest, in my opinion, in things that build your wealth without giving you tax implications. Dividends are tax implications. Ideally, you find companies that reinvest their own profits so that way you're not being exposed to taxable events. You want to minimize taxes. And ideally, you build a portfolio that you're minimizing taxes within to where in the future, and this is what rich people do. In the future, what people do is they look at their real estate portfolio and they look at their stock portfolio and they say, well, I don't want to pay taxes on real estate because I'm going to depreciate to offset my rental income. And I'm going to 1031 exchange in case I need to trade a property. Oh, I'm going to hold an ETF, which is going to rebalance for me so I don't have taxes over here. How do you get money out of this without taxes? You take a loan against these assets. You take a loan against your house, like a credit line or a pledged secured credit line where you're pledging some of your assets, whether it's your real estate or your stocks with a bank. Like you go to a JP Morgan, hey, these are my assets. I want to take a loan out against them. They say, great, we'd love to give you a loan. And guess what happens when you take out a loan because you need some money to start up a business or whatever? Oh, wow, you don't pay taxes because it's not a taxable event. That's how the rich people get around paying taxes. If you want to build wealth and you want to be a millionaire, you got to start thinking like a rich person. And so this is why when people are like, oh, I don't have any money to start my business. Well, if you had gotten into real estate, maybe you would have had a piggy bank to break the real estate box on, so to speak, the real estate piggy bank on, take some money and then go fund your startup, right? So big fan of being tax efficient as you're building your wealth. And of course, minimize the risky forms of debt. Risky forms of debt are things you generally don't want to touch. Balloon payments, stay away from. Variable rate loans, just stay away from these. The easiest answer is just stay away from them. When you're more advanced, you've got a bigger portfolio, maybe. So get fixed rate loans with fixed amortization schedules, fixed payoff schedules, no balloon payments, no hard money loans, no short fuse lending, and try to stay away from margin. But you also have to stay away from negativity. And this is one of the first things that we talked about. See here, somebody named Travis in the comments says upward mobility is a myth. That is, I think you're just saying that for me to say that's the stupidest thing ever. It's a complete lie. If you don't think upward mobility exists, fine. Then do whatever it is you're doing and keep thinking small. But the reality is, if you become better at what you're doing every single day and you become better at solving your problems, your income will go up. The more you can solve better problems, the more you get paid. It's that simple. And it's super, super important that you always focus on improving yourself. One of the things I ask people sometimes is, hey, you're trying to make more money. How many words per minute do you type? And they'll say, I don't know, 30. And I'm like, how are you going to make more money typing 30 words per minute when the dude next to you who wants the same job you're trying to get types 120 words per minute? Who's going to get the job if the job is being efficient in the office place? Everyone should be more efficient in the office place. How hard is it right now to go in the App Store and download a typing program and become more efficient? The more you become a more improved person, a more improved individual at all aspects of your life, you have a nice personality, you're nice to people, you try to help people, you're empathetic, you're sympathetic, you understand the difference between empathy and sympathy. You understand how toxic relativity is, how toxic hate is, how toxic envy is, how toxic conspiracy is. You understand these things and you understand the things that actually put you in a down mood versus the things that put you in an up mood. Well, then all of a sudden you can really start aligning your life in such a way that you focus on just building your wealth. I even tell myself, I was just in a meeting with my CPA. We had a 2-hour meeting. That's what I just did the last 2 hours. Great guy. Love him to death. And one of the things I said is, I don't care about any kind of numbers right now. I am going to work through this recession as if my net worth is zero. Because my net worth doesn't matter to me. My goal right now is increasing income. And I'm in a place where I don't need to make that decision, but I've decided I want to because I want to expand. Now, once you build a net worth, you can make the decision. I could have made the decision this year. I could still make the decision now that if I want to go into retirement mode, start paying things off. You go into retirement phase of life. That's when you care about dividends. That's when you care about passive income. That's when you care about paying things down and scaling down your business. I'm 30 years old. I don't ever want to scale down. My personality says I will find a work-life balance, but I'm going to work hard because I love stuff going on. I cringe at the idea of being, retired and sitting at a dinner table with my spouse or my son. And I'm like, so what's new in your life? Because I got the paper today and that's all I did today. And I read the newspaper, but I read the newspaper and build businesses. That makes me happy. I think the journey is what creates happiness. It's not a number on the bank account. So I think it's a really important idea. So thank you so much, folks, for watching this video. I can't believe it was 36 minutes long. We did it all live. If you appreciated this kind of content, remember that I also, on a daily basis, when the market is open, so that's generally Monday through Friday, do course member live streams. We are also doing a trading challenge. The trading challenge is educational. It is turning into a $5 million trading challenge between now and 2023. It's all about learning how to take advantage of volatility in options trading. It's really cool. It's going to be super fun. We've already started that. That's in the Stocks and Psych group. But again, that should be, in the respects of this video, that should be part of the smaller part of your portfolio. Longer term, what do you want to think about? Well, number one, negativity and hate. Get that out of your life. That's zero, actually, step zero. Number one would be health, nutrition, and knowing thyself. Number two, income. We talked about those high income areas, right? We talked about high income jobs or focusing on, hey, what does it take to get a better paying job? And then doing the things on that checklist. Number three, taxes and side hustles. Number four, debt pay down. Number five, real estate, bank hacks. Start small, move your way up. Passive wealth versus passive income. Stocks via ETFs or retirement accounts. And expanding. And anytime you want to scale down, you have the choice to do so when you have the wealth. Always start with wealth first, because wealth gives you options. If you have no wealth, you have no options. Anyway, check out the programs of Building Your Wealth down below. There is a coupon code expiring tonight. And in the future, if you watch this video in the future, if you go to the website, there might be a new coupon there, or just go to a more recent video and see if there's one there. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye and good luck.